welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Jolyn Drennan, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today in the pod, Robin deAlmeida from the Parent Information Center of New Hampshire helps me build my family's team. Rachel Blattstein and Aurelia Moran break down home visiting, and Winnie finally makes the show.
You can actually take his tail off.
New Hampshire Family Now is brought to you by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Since 1962, the Charitable Foundation has worked hand in hand with generous and visionary citizens to maximize the power of giving and support, collaborate, and lead innovative initiatives. Initiatives like New Hampshire Tomorrow, which is focused on making sure children and families have access to education, healthcare, and career pathways to ensure every family member thrives. To learn more about New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and all their initiatives, go to www.nhcf.org. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. I'm happy to welcome back to the show Robin deAlmeida, Project Director of Communications and Family Engagement at the Parent Information Center of New Hampshire. Second time on the pod, Robin. Must be nice.
It is nice.
I don't know why. Maybe it's the lyricism of your name. I feel like you should have your own walk-around music. Like, and then an explosion. Welcome back. Thanks for blowing up my office. So how have you been? How's the family?
Good stuff all around. You know, this time of year is chaos. The holidays coming up, end of the year, but all the things.
You know, every time I see you, and I don't know why this happens, I'm amazed by the fact that we're the same age. And you and I both have kids, but your kids are at the other end of the spectrum than mine in high school and college. And I'd love for you to give me a glimpse, if you can, as a parent. What are you working on now? What are some of the successes and maybe the challenges of the phase you're in?
It's so funny, right? Same age, different journeys. But I'm so appreciative of the opportunities we have to talk about it. It's like a really beautiful thing for me to reflect back through your current experience and then look forward through mine. Such a nice dichotomy. But I have to say right now, we're working on building independence, letting our kids make their own choices and decisions, and then supporting them along the way. My role has really shifted from like captain of the ship, where I thought, you know, hey, this summer camp would be really good learning experience for you. I'm going to sign you up, to more of like the head coach of uncertainty in their lives and mine. So I've got like a 20-year-old who's trying to find her path in college, and she so badly wants to find her thing, her purpose, you know, what she's truly meant to do. And as we know, you know, that doesn't really happen as fast as we want it to, right? You start somewhere, you pursue a path, and at each turn you kind of grow and figure out what opportunities are right for you. And then maybe those opportunities don't look the same as the ones your peers are taking. So I'd say this is a phase for me as a parent that's really rough. I see their growth, I see their fear and the uncertainty, and I know it's really all up to them. And also college happens to be ridiculously expensive. So sometimes I want to be like, hey, can you just pursue career XYZ so I can sleep at night? But I can't. There's a ton of parenting books as you're going through those early years. And then there's a lot less people who are willing to talk about like the real deal of these years. So it's all uncharted territory. And I think it's really important just to let our kids know that, you know what, we're not perfect. As parents, we're on a journey too. And just being super honest about the times when we fumble and reflecting on those times, on those experiences, and how we keep getting up and moving forward. It's this place of letting them know, I see you, I believe in you, make the best choices possible, no matter what, we're your home base. You can come here to reflect, recharge, and relaunch.
It feels like stakes now are higher, maybe because of the cost of things, because of all of a sudden we're like putting the pressure on to make a decision that we know is a higher stakes decision. And so we're kind of almost, it feels like we're squashing, and I'm projecting because I don't have your kids. But it's like, I was a mess until I was 28. So my whole theory of growing up is you have until you're 28.
Yeah.
And by 28, find your path, because you're going to want to be on a path in your 30s. Are the stakes higher now, or is it feel like the tensions we're bringing to those stakes are higher?
So I want to say the latter. And what I try to really focus on too is that, so for example, my husband and I are very different people in that he went through lots of journeys before college. He was in the military. He was the first generation American in his family. So he has a lot more patience with the journey than I do, who I was college, job while in college, job in that field right after college.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, it's hard, and I have no patience. I'm a low patience person in general. I'd like to say it's the latter. We want them to have that journey. And I think as a society, we're bringing some pressures to that journey that don't need to be there for any of us. The flip side of that is college is really expensive. And so I think as a society, we need to start looking at doing things different ways. And I have said to my daughter and my son, your journey, especially these kids were through COVID, your journey is going to look a little different than the people who came up before you.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I hear you saying this about, really, you're talking about systems. I went this way, then this way, then this way. Obviously, you and I worked together on the Your Voice campaign with you and PIC and New Hampshire Family Voices. And the notion that your voice matters, I think, is incredible. And when I just heard you talk about that, I was thinking about, okay, so you had a pathway that interacted with systems in a systematic way, right? Now, I know that your husband's a first generation American. His interaction with systems might be different, right? Because of the way we're structured as a culture. And so I'm wondering, kind of relating that to the Your Voice campaign, when we talk about family voice, we talk about the fact that it can change systems. What does that look like? How can something like Family Voice change the systems in your experience in the system?
It is incredible how Family Voice changes systems. And I hope that this campaign has really, I know it's your hope too, that has really given New Hampshire families a chance to see that what they share with their educators, healthcare providers, and community service providers about their experiences, their wants and their needs can really inform and strengthen the systems that they're a part of. And here that is really true. Our systems leaders are incredibly accessible and have a lot of value for Family Voice.
When we talk about system change, though, and I just kind of mentioned this too, we are talking about our personal experience. And when that system changes, our experience then changes, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're interacting and part of multiple systems every day. We are, our kids are, and our experience in them shapes who we are and the way in which we build teams in those systems.
Right. In our previous conversations, you and I have talked a lot about building teams that surround our families, that engage productively with us, with our children. But what do we mean by teams when you say that, building teams?
So I think building teams is both formal and informal. For example, when I think about my son's educational team, this could be his teachers in 10th grade. He's a 10th grader. So his teachers in 10th grade, his educational audiologist, but also it's a coach who he really trusts. And that coach might check in with him about his academic struggles. It's also a teacher from 9th grade that he built a strong relationship with. And when my son is struggling in a subject or he's not handing work in on time, it could be either of those people, the coach or the 9th grade teacher that addresses the problem and solves it with him because there's trust there. Or it could be his math teacher and me who step in, right? But the better relationship, I think, we and our kids build with people and the providers in our lives or within the systems, the bigger and deeper that support network gets over the years. And that's where you get these people really know me. It's not just the people this year, it's the people from years past who can also speak for us and with us. And then informally, I've always worked with my kids on building informal teams too. And I think we're not always told about the team building work. But I think if I'm looking back, I wish I had more intentionality about team building and focus on team building in the earlier years. So for example, even though we built this strong relationship with my son and it feels like he could tell us anything, what if at some point he can't? And that's a reality, right? So who are the adults in his life that he can depend on for guidance when he can't come to us or he feels he can't can't come to us. Well, there's this mountain biking team that he's been a part of since he was young. And there's people from like 16 to 56 on it. So when he needed a job shadow, he had fishermen in Maine that he could contact. He had a woodworker in New York that he could contact. He had several other people that he could contact. Ironically, those people are also his support system, because when he handles a loss that as parents we're pretty embarrassed by the way he handled it, his mountain biker, the woodworker from New York, steps in and says, yeah, we don't do that here. That's not how we handle. That's not sportsmanship like. So it's like a wraparound team, right? We're building support for this kiddo and guidance from this kiddo. And then we're able to say, because we've been building it for a while, we're able to say, this isn't going to sound so good coming from me, your mom, but it's going to sound really good from that cool mountain biker with tattoos.
And nothing says, I'm going to hear this guy out like he smells like fish and he's been on a boat for a year and a half. Yeah, I totally see it. It's the opportunity for positive influence. And, he builds it just like you build it. We both build it. And, you and I obviously have been continuing this conversation for a while, most recently about my oldest son. And maybe I'm projecting, but I desperately want him to remind you of your sons, because for me, there's a lot of comfort in that. And we've been discussing lately that, he's having challenges with focus at school, with issues controlling his body, sitting in a chair, which surprised me and seemed to surprise you. And so his school emailed, for which I'm grateful. But there are a few things that I think I need to unpack, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
And forgive me, because this takes a little context, because my wife and I knew that this was coming, that we'd need to build a team of support around him. And I often describe him as being busy or in constant motion, because from birth, he's really been that, a squirmer, and that he's our first child. And we don't know any better because he's our first child. But, whether or not he's in the normal range of behavior. But I'll tell you, the very notion of normal makes my stomach turn, because I both desperately want him to be himself, no matter what that looks like. And I find myself hoping or wishing that whatever that self looks like falls within normal, because it will be easier for him. But maybe for us?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think it's especially tough with your first child. I think the notion of normal is real tough for all of us. It kind of relates back to what I was saying before about, embracing the fact that even though we're all like part of that system, like to me, it almost parallels with the college thing of like, it's going to look real different for different kids. And we have to normalize that. In early education, that's really super possible. So like when I think of your son falling out of his chair, and I got a good laugh out of that because I had the same comment to me, like this kid keeps falling out of his chair. I'm like, why? But in elementary classrooms these days, normal looks like a lot of different things. It could look like a kid sitting on a big bouncy yoga ball. There might be another kid at a stand-up desk. There might be another kid on the floor. And so there's all the opportunities. So then it's working with your team to say like, we've got to preserve his spirit. So he wants to be a lifelong learner. And so that school is a place of positivity. But I also know you've got to manage a classroom of more than my son. And so how do we do that together? We're in a good place because that system in particular, like I said, we're implementing things like universal design for learning, where normal looks really different for different kids. It's that relationship. I'd say it's even your son building this relationship with them, even at this early age, where they just value who he is. He's this sweet, caring kid. And when his team is embracing that and they're saying like, this is the most important piece, we've got to keep this piece of him together and intact and growing, the other things just wrap around.
Right. I totally agree with you. It doesn't hurt that he has amazing hair.
It doesn't. I agree.
So, but I think that's interesting because all of a sudden, okay, so what I just heard you say is, all right, we're in a good place to build him teams. Perfect. I get an email from a school. Now what? One,
I feel like you were already open to hearing some things that you might not have wanted to hear. You maybe thought you were going to hear them, but you didn't really want to hear them. That openness is the magic, right? Like being able to be open and saying, how do we do this together? Here's my priorities. I want to keep him as the energetic, full of life kid that he is. And so how do I do that? Or how do we do that while we do the other things?
I'll tell you, it probably helps because you have that walk around music behind you.
Yeah, Yeah, that does help a lot.
Robin, thanks so much for coming on. It is always a pleasure. I love working with you. I love working with PIC and New Hampshire Family Voices. So please come back.
All right. Thanks.
And when we come back, I'll be joined by Aurelia Moran, Home Visiting Program Supervisor from Maternal and Child Health, and Rachel Blattstein, a home visitor with Waypoint. Don't go anywhere. Today's show is also brought to you by the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock and the Child Advocacy and Protection Program, a multidisciplinary program with the Children's Hospital established to evaluate and provide integrative care to suspected victims of child maltreatment. Together, a team of physicians, advanced practice registered nurses, social workers, nurses, and child life specialists work to provide consultation and evaluations of children who are suspected victims of abuse, so to serve in the best interest of children and families at multiple levels of prevention. For more information about Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock and the Child Advocacy Protection Program, visit www.chadkids.org/child-advocacy. New Hampshire Family Now is a proud participant in the Your Voice campaign. Together, the Parent Information Center, New Hampshire Family Voices, and New Hampshire Children's Trust have launched a statewide campaign dedicated to celebrating the critical role Family Voice plays in shaping services and systems throughout the Granite State. Because questions families ask and the information they share often makes a difference in understanding a diagnosis, building an effective treatment plan, and informing the services they use every day. To learn more about the campaign, go to nhchildrenstrust.org/yourvoice or picnh.org/yourvoice. Today on the show, I'm excited to welcome Aurelia Moran, Home Visiting Program Supervisor from the Maternal and Child Health section within the Division of Public Health Home Visiting Program. Aurelia, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
As I was trying to descend through Department of Health and Human Services, it became quickly noticeable that there's a lot going on in the state government that works to support families across the Granite State. And I'd love for you, if you could, just to give us a quick sketch of the Maternal and Child Health section.
So I feel very lucky that I am within the Maternal and Child Health section because I get to work with a lot of great colleagues and learn about different work that's happening there. And then being within the Bureau of Population Health and Community Services, there's other colleagues, and then Division of Public Health, also being within DHHS, so it can be a lot to navigate, but at the same time, it offers a lot of different people who have a lot of different areas of expertise that you can work with and partner with to really try to make stronger impacts. I'm part of the early childhood integration team, for example. So I get to work with partners across DHHS who have an impact on families, and then also get to work with the early childhood integration team from the Department of Education, an even broader kind of understanding. And I think it's really important to have these opportunities to connect with each other, to understand the many different programs that are available, and really working towards the same goal of supporting children and families and their well-being.
Yeah. It just becomes apparent that there are many gears at work that interlock so to support families. And as I kind of was navigating the website, I saw Healthy Families New Hampshire, a lot of information around that. And I'm curious to know, how does that fit into all of this and the supports that are available?
Healthy Families New Hampshire is a part of a broader evidence-based model called Healthy Families America. And in New Hampshire, no matter what zip code you have, you can access this program. And it's an evidence-based program, so it's demonstrated outcomes across a lot of different areas. Maternal and child health, for example, child achievement later on, school readiness and achievement, and increased social economic security, and an increase in linkages and referrals to other community supports. It's a lot that home visitors do, and their toolbox has to be pretty packed with knowledge of their community and who in their community can support families with different challenges that they might be facing, or different fun things to do that can increase joy in their day-to-day lives. There's just so much knowledge that home visitors have to have.
As you know, a home visitor from Waypoint recently came to my house to check in on me.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Oh, here, let me get this door. I'm Nathan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Rachel, nice to meet you. Come on in.
And we have 2 children, a 6-year-old who was at school at the time, and a 3-year-old Winnie who was happy to show Rachel every one of his toys.
What is that?
It's Godzilla. You can actually take his tail.
And, I've never experienced a home visit before, so my wife and I were both nervous.
This is my wife, Jenny.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you?
Good, how are you?
And so I thought it might be great to really start from the base level. What is home visiting? And functionally speaking, what is its purpose? What does it offer families?
Yeah, home visit. It's someone coming into your home who has had training in the Healthy Families America model. In New Hampshire, it's also someone who's had training in an evidence-based curriculum. So in New Hampshire, we use parents as teachers or growing great kids. So that gives home visitors the information about development. So what age is the child? What are they going to be working on developmentally? And what are some fun activities that really enhance where they are developmentally? It's a program that also is looking beyond the development of the child and looking at different factors that families might be facing at a particular moment. So there's also screening that occurs in the program at different time points, and those time points are considered critical time points. And so we try to make sure that we do certain screenings by certain periods of time, because we know that there's different challenges that if families can connect with services earlier to address those challenges or get the support that they need, that's going to support stronger outcomes for the family. We do screening on depression, for example. We do screening on development. So we use the Ages and Stages questionnaire to track development at different periods in time. And all of those screenings really, and even just simple questions like, do you use tobacco? And are you interested in talking about quitting? But trying to do it in a way that is going to be most beneficial for families. So if families aren't interested in working on quitting smoking at that particular moment, then we'll talk about something they are interested in. And so maybe that's like learning about fine motor skills, because that's something that their child is working on at that point in time.
That hits home pretty well because 1, we need to work on fine motor skills. And 2, I think when Rachel came in, I had mentioned that we were nervous because we were nervous that we might be judged in some way, or we might be compelled in some way to think differently about what we're doing, which ultimately is not a bad thing, but it caused some anxiety in us. And I kept thinking, how is this going to go? As Rachel came in, it quickly went away, and what I found in its stead was something else, a general curiosity about how I was doing, and really an acknowledgement that we'd collectively been through a lot as a society, but even maybe more so as a family.
How's parenting during COVID been?
It's a lot. I think
So what is like a typical day in your family like?
Well, so I
Are
am
you finding time on the weekends for like family time to see your wife and everything?
Now, are home visitors trained in such a way so to create this type of connection and authentic interaction?
I am so grateful that you shared that perspective and that experience. I think it's something that is common, right? Like, you're having someone come into your home that you've never met before, and are they going to judge me in some way? And as a parent, that can feel really uncomfortable. So yeah, there is training in that, but I think it's also so much of home visiting is also finding the right people, who can make those strong relationships, who are comfortable with talking to others. So I'm so happy to hear that was a nice, comfortable experience for you. But some of those components, yes, they are embedded in the model. So there is a lot of focus on meeting families where they are and looking at strengths and seeing how to build off of those and normalizing difficult situations, and also normalizing like that everyone needs help sometimes, and that there's a lot of different programs out there that are there to support you. And so sometimes, because you're talking about, how it can be difficult to navigate all of these systems, like at the state level, that can also be the case in the community. And so having that trusted person who can take the time to build the relationship with you and learn about you and your family, and then help you to kind of sift through all of that and find the resources that are going to be helpful. That is a core part of the program. And
yeah, I have to say, and we did talk quite a bit about, she asked a lot of questions that seemed to swirl around me and my state, but post visit, I kept thinking about that focus on meeting me where I'm at. And as you mentioned, there's a lot going on with, not only do I have to navigate all these systems, including school, childcare, health, but with a different set of emotions as a parent, with a different set of resources as, parents are stretched thinner and thinner and thinner. And my emotional state dictates quite a bit of how things are going to go in the environment that is created. So I'm wondering if you can speak to that, the focus on caregiver and states.
Yeah. So that's very powerful. So when I was a home visitor earlier in my career, and one of the most powerful things that I learned was so much of the work is based on creating a space for some joy, right? So, can you bring a fun activity and do something fun together? Really supporting the parent in understanding how that interaction is helping their child to develop, right? So when you do this activity, then you can observe those interactions and share that with the family.
There he is.
Hi, buddy. We were just talking about you and how great you are.
I love you, pumpkin.
You love the pumpkin? I brought it for you. I heard when you were talking to Winnie for that quick moment how excited your tone was.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I think he picks up on that energy.
So like when you just, when your baby just made a noise, you just responded. When you walked away, your baby followed you, and like their gaze followed you. And so when you have those experiences where you can see the joy that happens and where you can foster that, and where parents can learn the huge impact that they have on their children's development, but also emotions, feelings of safety, and all of those pieces, that's really at the core of the work. And I think too, like the different stressors that you talked about, those can also have an impact. We're all human, and we're all going to experience different challenges and struggles. And sometimes we're going to experience those while we're responsible for caring for another human being. And how do we balance that? And who do we turn to for support? And so home visitors, because of that skill and building those relationships, and because of their vast knowledge of their community and how to support families and connecting with other support, that all helps to weave a blanket of support around that family, to know that they're not alone in this. And that is incredibly powerful. And then that helps them to provide the support for their child. And then their child knows that they're not alone, that their parents are there for them, or their caregivers are there for them.
Yeah. Early on, you had said something that it just stuck with me. Watching a child follow their parent out of the room, watching the gaze follow, trying to look at different levels of attachment. And as I thought about that, I thought, oh my gosh, behind the scenes as a caregiver, there's so many things that go on that you are, it's almost like the minutia of your movements, of the way you speak to somebody. But, when I was in this visit with Rachel, she asked me whether or not, and I remember this because it caught me by surprise, whether or not I was proud of anything.
Are you proud of yourself?
And I thought, what? Because I don't think I've been asked that for some time, like years and years and years. And, as I kind of processed that, I'm like, she asked me that and I was like, oh my gosh, I am. Yeah, I am. I guess I am proud of myself, but I hadn't been able to express it. And, now that we're in this conversation, I'm like, she's focusing on my strengths. She's focusing on the strengths of the caregiver who inevitably have them to give care. And I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to that idea about strength-based approach.
It's such a shift when you become a parent or a caregiver, and sometimes we don't always take the time to think about those strengths ourselves, right? Because we're just caught up in the day-to-day and getting everything done. And it can be so powerful to have someone ask you that and to reflect on it and to say it out loud and to recognize your own strengths. And that's really powerful in encouraging more strengths, right? The more that we focus on our strengths, the more that we see them and the more that we can build on them. And I think that is, so there's something in HFA called the parallel process. And that's really, because I'm looking at it from a systems level, the more that we can do that at every layer, where if we're really thinking about wanting to build the strengths of children, we have to think about the strengths of their family, and we have to think about the strengths of the community, right? And by being able to kind of look at where you're strong, and then also, that can also help us to feel, I guess, stronger in addressing areas that we may want to grow in, in order to see those parts too. It can be helpful to see all the things that you're really great at. And then, here's some things that I want to work on. And I think that having that growth mindset, like at every area, and thinking about like all the ways that we're really strong and where we want to go, can be helpful in development.
Yep, I totally agree. And I mean, thinking about bringing my strengths to the table in order to confront the things that take strength helps me focus on those things I'd like to improve, which everybody has. At some point in our conversation, we switched to goals, which it's so silly to say, but, am I proud? Caught me by surprise. What are my goals? Caught me by surprise, because I think that I didn't realize till I was asked I didn't have any.
So what kind of goals do you feel like you want to focus on with your family or parenting?
I think what I want to focus
like, what are my goals? I'm just thinking like, okay, tonight
is the separation. I think I got too close to working too hard. I want to focus on creating barriers kind of to protect my family time. I think that's really important.
And I think when she asked that, my initial response was, oh my gosh, I want to start being able to manage my own schedule better so I can have them.
It seems like you're really trying to put the pieces together though.
Yeah.
Day by day.
Day by day. Trying to figure it out.
But, how do we bring goal setting to the forefront so that we're more intentional about it? And what does it mean for caregivers and families?
I think intention, what you just said, is a huge part of it. I think every caregiver or parent might feel like there's parts in their life, there's traditions maybe that they want to hold on to and that they want to make sure that their kids experience. And then there may be parts of their life that they don't want to keep those patterns, that they don't want to repeat, and that they don't want their kids to go through. And so I think that goal setting and reflection and having someone just to walk with you through that process and to ask you these types of questions can help you really think, like, what is it that I do want? What do I want for my family? What do I want for myself? And just having the opportunity to reflect on that and to have an intention of what your hopes are, of what your goals are, can help us to go in that direction, because we recognize it. We recognize those things that we want to keep and those things that we want to let go. That is powerful. And just having someone there to kind of reflect on that with you, who's gotten to know you and has gotten to know your family, who you feel the trust to share that with, is huge. Saying things out loud and setting a goal is huge. And then also breaking down the steps of like, what might you do? What are the barriers? What are your supports? Like, those are all really critical pieces that we don't always have time for when we're taking care of everyone else. But when you have someone there who's with you, who wants to know what's important to you, it can help you to just take that extra minute and think about that.
That's really important for kids to know that they have that time. Even if it's only an hour, it's better to have that hour quality than tons of hours just on the phone, distracted. So
yeah, I kept thinking about this notion of when I talk about what I want, it strangely gives me also permission to admit to what I don't want. It provides something else that I think is so interesting, and it gives me permission to say it's okay not to want to feel this way or that way, because you're trading one state for a different state, maybe more aspirational, but what else are we doing but aspiring and helping ourselves and our families get to newer heights.
Well, and it's vulnerable, right? Like, anytime that you open yourself up to a new relationship, to having someone in your home, to talking about parenting, like, it can be vulnerable. But I think that is why it's so important to talk about our strengths, and why it's so important that home visitors are trained in looking for strengths, right? Like, that's a crucial part of the work, because, it's important to work from that perspective, because it is so vulnerable, like, it's not about seeing, you should sort your pants right now, or like you should get rid of those, or make goals, or like it's not about that. It's just about being able to celebrate the things that you want and to say out loud the things that maybe you want to work on, and to have a trusting relationship with someone who may be able to provide some support. Like maybe they know about different resources that can help you, or maybe just being able to talk about the things that are stopping you can help you to find your way to solutions to help you get there.
And if a person listening out there would like to contact a home visitor, what should they do?
Sure. So they could type in NewHampshireHomeVisiting.org into their web browser, and then there's a searchable database. They can enter in what town they're in, and if they're interested specifically in Healthy Families America, the number and the contact information for the provider in their community will pop up, and they can just give them a call. If they're interested in other family support services or home visiting, they can also search that as well. They could also call the warm line at Waypoint, which is 1-800-640-6486, or they could check out fsnh.org, which can connect them to family resource centers throughout the state, which are great resources for families to learn about different supports in their communities.
Leah, thank you so much for coming on the show. The experience of having a home visitor was not only eye-opening, but empowering. So please come back when you get a chance.
Thank you. And thanks so much for highlighting home visiting on your podcast.
Like it?
Lime juice. You've had it. He is so fun.
Many thanks to New Hampshire's Office of Social and Emotional Wellness for sponsoring this podcast. Started within New Hampshire's Department of Education, the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness consolidates policy development and implements projects and programs that are focused on health and wellness with an emphasis on behavioral health of all students, youth, and families. To learn more about the Department of Education and its many programs and approaches, visit www.education.nh.gov. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.